Hey y'all. Thanks for having me. I feel really lucky to be here with you all, and thank you for Memphis Rocks. This is a super cool way for me to get to support Sam and John and the work that Memphis Rocks does. And I've been really inspired by their commitment to making food accessible at the Memphis Rocks gym, as well as climbing. So that's really rad. Give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Memphis Rocks. You guys are rad. Woo! Okay, so my name's Kate Rutherford, and I'm one of the co-founders and president of Farm to Crag. And our mission is to connect climbers with local food growers and artisans to stimulate individual wellness, vibrant local economies, and healthy environment through education, community engagement, and a map. And I know you heard a little bit about this last night, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. So we can bounce to the next slide. Who's my slide guy? Over here? No one? No worries. So I'm just learning to boulder, so it's super fun to get out there today. And I'm kind of an old trad dad. But I really learned to rock climb in Yosemite Valley. And it was a pretty overwhelming teacher, but really beautiful. And I was working really hard to try to free climb El Cap. And right around the time this photo was taken on the Monster Crack, Sam Elias and Brittany Griffith and I all had breakfast at Brittany's house, and Sam whipped up these beautiful sauteed red cabbage leaves to go with breakfast, and I was so impressed by the just like kindness of somebody offering to cook me breakfast before this flight in the morning. So anyway, I think it's cool to have it full circle, like here I am learning to climb in Yosemite, and here Sam is, you know, with John, like having this whole festival to try and like support us and feed us and nourish us in this journey. All right, we can bounce to the next one. From Yosemite, I went to Patagonia, and I wanted to climb all the mountains in Patagonia, right? Because they're really pretty. From here, I had been there 7 seasons, and the next slide will show you these, like the last season I had down there. And this is kind of what it looks like. Lots of rock, basically, and lots of cracks, and big glaciers and big beauty, and kind of scary. But got to climb a lot of really neat new routes, got to climb all of these peaks, including Serratori back there in the background. And in the next slide, you'll see us on the summit of my very last climb on Mermos with these 2 really rad women. And that felt special, like to climb this final tower with a group of women. And it was not so common back then, and I think it's become more common now that women are climbing together. But 10 years ago, this was kind of a big deal. And Lisa B there in the middle, she's an awesome chef, and she works for us on the Farm to Crag project as well. And we can go to the next slide. And this is like the evening when we came down, and it's like went from this big like joy, we did it, to this kind of like, wow, we are way out here, and does anybody care? But that moment was totally changed because when we got back to the restaurant that I'd been eating at for like 7 winters, they had changed the menu after that climb, and there was now an ensalada de Kate on the menu. And it had all my favorite things. I was always asking for like sin cebolla and with the pumpkin, and can you put the cheese on there, and no tuna, and lots of lettuce, and all the things, super picky. But they honored me by taking care of me when I got back from the mountains, right? And so it was really unique to have that experience. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe everybody has ensalada de Kate. But it was a big pivotal moment for me. And I'm like, okay, like this is a really cool connection between climbers and food. Like we need to be supported. And how do we like show up and honor those communities who are supporting us? And like bring those communities into nature and like get those chefs and farmers and food producers into the mountains as well. So one of the things Farm to Crag does is we take the climbers farming and we take the farmers climbing. So this is my hometown in Bishop, California, where I am starting to learn to boulder. But But you can go to the next slide. That time in my life, it was almost 8 years ago now, I was like, oh, climbing really beautiful things isn't quite enough anymore. And I realized I had earned this mentor status, and what was I going to do with that? And so in the next slide, you'll see that Farm to Crag is really like what has come from that, that mantle, that mentorship. And part of this story, while you're hearing it, I want you to think about how each one of you is actually a mentor too. And you might not know it yet. Like I didn't realize until, I was old that I was a mentor. And it's a good thing to acknowledge that you have that power over people too. And so now my quest is to tie local food to climbing in a really powerful way. And that means getting folks together in places like Chattanooga. This is 2 weeks ago at our Farm to Crag gathering at Denny Cove with the Sequatchie Cove Farm. And you can go to the next slide, have 3 pillars of what we try to do. And the local food map is a really big priority, and that's how it started. I was like, okay, well, where's all this beautiful local food that I've seen in a couple different places, and how do we find that really easily on our rest days when we're hangry, whatever it might be, and be able to give back to the community. Climbers kind of have a bad rap sometimes, like we're kind of an extractive industry, and how do we give back to those rural communities that we're invading with our crash pads and our ropes and our hot pink tights? And anyway, so it's been a really fun way to think about rural local economies, but also like making friends with the folks who make your bagel in the morning, and then just learning from all the rad folks out there. So one of my fun projects in the last couple years is like, okay, I want to use the map to go on a cool climbing trip. And so I'd never been to South Dakota before. Has anybody been to South Dakota before? It's so cool, you guys gotta go. So it turns out there's this Wild Idea buffalo ranch there, and they make really beautiful meat, and I think there's bison on the next photo, but they'll ship it anywhere all over the world, and their goal is to regenerate the prairie through bison grazing, because that's how these species all evolved, right? And it turns out cows can be grazed this way too. But bison basically trample and eat all the grass, like down to the little nub, in a really small area. And while they're eating, they're like pooping and peeing and trampling all that awesome nutrients into the ground, and it makes those roots grow really deep and be resilient to like floods or big windstorms or other kinds of erosion that's happening in this like kind of wild changing climate that we have. So anyway, we went climbing on this limestone at Spearfish, and there's a couple more epic climbing photos, both from Custer State Park and Spearfish. Y'all should go check it out. And there's a couple rad food photos if you want to keep flipping through these. But it was really beautiful. We got to eat all from local gardens. We went in June, really good time of year for gardens, and ended up making these really beautiful meals like out in the prairie, just camping in the grass, but going climbing. And we got to help herd the bison, which basically means open the gate and the mama bison just like know where to go and leads the like 800 bison herd to the next pasture. So anyway, go check out the local foods map that we have at farmtocrag.org and try to use it and try to go find a farm. And if there's not a farm in your area and there is available farmers, like you can add to the map really easily. So the other really fun way that Farm to Crag engages is thinking about education engagement. Like, why is this cool? Why should we care about this? And you can start flipping through these slides, but we really want to bring mutual respect between these climbing communities and these farming communities. And like, climbers are really strong and work really hard and have all this like bicep power to offer, right? And so we go work on the farms. This is Ashima teaching us how to make her favorite crag snack, onigiri. Brandon Belcher is showing us how to make lunch. And this is like a way we can learn from each other. This is a local chef, Kenyatta Ashford, who loves cooking over the open fire and has always been really committed to using local organic produce in all his food. And so our goal is to make local food really approachable for each other. Like, yeah, just like chop up the salad and put it on a bowl and like squeeze a lemon and some olive oil and salt and pepper on there and you have an awesome dinner. Or like, how do we make it really bountiful and rich and like a celebration of the abundance that we have in these communities. So you can pause here for just a second. But I want to leave you all with just a couple nuggets. If you're going to remember anything about this weekend, remember that Brittany Griffith cooked you breakfast and lunch, and she's a badass. Thank you, Brittany. Woo! But beyond that, I think it's really cool if everybody could like grow something on their own, because that is hard, it turns out. Like, I'm a good climber, I'm a pretty bad farmer. I can grow a few tomatoes, I can grow some chard, but y'all should try it if you haven't tried it. Whether you have like sprouts growing in your window or you plant a tomato plant, you could try growing lettuce, like whatever you're stoked on. But it really has, every season it reminds me like there's a lot of value in growing food. Like, we should be paying these farmers, they should be millionaires. Like, these farmers are badass, they work so hard. So anyway, I think we really need to change the way we think about food. Like, there's so much love that goes into producing that. And then you take it and you cook it for your friends and show your love to them by bringing it to the table. So try to grow something on your own. And then buying directly from farmers. Like, that's a little take home that's super simple. And like, okay, I might be able to like sequester some carbon and help reverse climate change. I might be able to eat healthier, and I might like contribute to sending a farmer's kid to college. Like, if you buy directly from a farmer, all that money goes to them and all of it stays in your little community instead of going to some big box store where it gets sort of like, I don't know, watered down and just a couple cents end up going to the people who grew this food with love. Okay, next slide. Okay, my next challenge to everybody is go find something that's locally grown or bread that's locally made, and build a meal around it and make something really beautiful for your friends. Because there's a lot of us that are lonely out there, and food is such a deeply powerful medicine that like cures loneliness. And we need, just like this group, to be together more so that we can like solve some gnarly problems that are out there, whether it's bouldering or, you know, world peace or how to make al dente pasta. Talk to Brittany. And then sort of probably the last one, we'll see how many more slides there are. This other piece is that the awe of nature is something that humans can't control. And so I think it's really interesting to think about us as climbers. We're out here like in the coolest boulder field, maybe in the world. Thank you very much, Stone Fort. You guys are rad. But how do you bring that awe of the outdoors and of nature back to your community, back to your home, back to yourself? And how do you like bring it to the dinner table? And that might be through just like a few wildflowers on the dinner table, or it might be through local chicken that you bought, or local eggs or broccoli or whatever your favorite veggie is. But it's a cool way that we can sort of show reciprocity and gratitude for this beautiful landscape that supports us, like finding joy outside, but also feeds us and nourishes us. And like, how do we bridge that gap between us and nature? Because it turns out we are nature. Like, we didn't just land here from aliens. So bring some of that awe and beauty home with you. Okay, one last slide. I love welcoming people to the table. I love, love, love community. And Farm to Craig's an all-volunteer organization, and we have a bunch of folks in the audience that have helped us over the years. We're always looking for volunteers, or just folks that want to come hang out at the boulders or on the farm with us. So please reach out anytime and come find me at Farm to Craig. .org or at Gmail. And even if you just want to like ask for a cool recipe or find a place on the map or have ideas about what we're doing wrong or what we could be doing better. But would love y'all to join the Farm to Crag family. So thank you so much, and I hope you eat well tomorrow morning. It's going to be awesome.